everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow right here on 88.3 FM WXOU, Auburn Hills, Michigan, Oakland University, and all your wonderful station identification features. I am your host, Giovanni Moschieri, and your sports media director here at WXOU. And the GioMoShow is your home for all Oakland University sports and beyond on 88.3 FM. Don't forget to follow WXOU on our MAB award-winning social media platforms. And don't forget to follow me as well while you're giving WXOU a follow. Both me and WXOU can be found on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you're not listening right now at 6 p.m. on Thursdays, then you can listen to me at your own convenience anywhere you are on YouTube and Spotify as each of episodes of the GioMoShow go up on said platforms. And since it is the middle of the summer, it is July, it is the, let's say, the dog days of sports, and especially sports coverage. Not a whole lot's going on, both collegially and professionally. Things are starting to get ramped up a little bit. Everybody needs their rest in the summer and needs their time to enjoy themselves. So that's exactly what's happening right now. And in the meantime, don't you worry, we're not going to stop talking about sports here. We got some season reviews that I like to cover here on the GioMoShow to kind of keep us going into the sports season. And for today, what we're going to be talking about and what's going to be the big focus of this episode of the GioMoShow, of course, we're going to be talking about the USPBL. It's a bit of a light week because it was the All-Star week, so we got only a few games to cover over there. But the big focus of today's show is going to be Oakland University club football. The sole representatives on Oakland University's campus of the greatest American sport out there, tackle football. We got it here on the GioMoShow today, not only in a season review, but we got not one, but two guests coming into the studio from club football. We got your captain and quarterback, Evan Pletz, and your president, captain, and dog in the trenches, Devin Banks, both of which are going to be sitting on the couch across from me here in the WXOU studios at 6:30. So be sure to stay tuned to the GioMoShow for that. Or if you're on Spotify and YouTube, then you can find that interview separately from the sports update section of the GioMoShow. I got it divided up nice for you guys, so don't worry about a thing. So before we're gonna start with USPBL, by the way, and we're just gonna lean into entirely club football afterwards. But before we do any of that, we got to talk about Bart's Pizza. Bart Basilico reinvented his father's pizzeria business by putting it on wheels. I'm talking a pizza food truck, baby. Bart and his wife Lauren travel all around Metro Detroit, cooking up homemade pies made fresh to order in their 4-layered pizza oven on wheels. You can find them on their website at eatbartspizza.com and on Facebook and Instagram as well at Bart's Pizza. His last name is literally Basil, and if I got to spell it out for you guys, you got Basilico, means basil in English. So, with a last name like that, you know he knows what he's doing. And while you're there, be sure to grab a cannoli as well. Bart's Pizza, it's too good.
Yo, I'm Jake Masucci from Jake's Takes. I wanted to talk a little bit about my show on my guy Giovanni's own show. And I wanted to talk about a little bit about Jake's Takes. I'm a student manager at Oakland University, and I kind of just talk all things sports. I talk a lot about the NBA, talk a little college basketball. We did a lot of March Madness stuff recently. We talked about NBA playoffs, NFL playoffs, talked a lot about the NFL draft. It's basically just an all things sports show. I really think you guys would enjoy it. And shout out to my guy Giovanni. Love him. But please check out Jake's Takes. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and then it's also available on its own YouTube channel. So please check out Jake's Takes, but please continue enjoying Giovanni's show.
But we got a season review of club football here. And as my lovely guests, Evan Pletz and Devin Banks, sit behind me in the lobby of the studio as they're walking in right now, getting ready for their interview on the GioMoShow right here. We're going to have to ask you guys, I'm going to ask you fellas to sit tight a little bit. I want to get through my section here, and we'll get you guys ready to roll here. So you guys can take a seat in the lobby if you'd like, and I'll call you in at the half-hour mark. All right, so we got club football season review to cover here. And if you're not as familiar with club sports, and especially club football, and you want to look up the stats for yourself, then they got the NCFA website for you, that being the National Club Football Association is the league that they play in. So to start things off in week 1, that was the week of September 12th of 2022, their opening game was against Loyola Chicago, who came visiting here in Auburn Hills, and they took quite a bit of points home with them, as the final score of that game was Oakland 45 and Loyola Chicago 10. In this game, obviously we're only holding Chicago to 10 points, the Oakland defense was stout. In this game, they totaled I'm not going to count all the way up to 13.5, but they had 13.5 recorded sacks in this game. And if I told you everybody who had a sack, we would be here for way, way too long. So 13.5 sacks were recorded against Chicago. And as far as how many yards they gave up, not many. They gave up 143 in the air and only 23 on the ground. As for the Oakland offense, in their performance against Chicago, it was a fireworks show. 170 yards for Evan Pletz, completing 10 of 18 passes with 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions as well. And on the ground, you got Joseph Denai running for 50 yards, and Evan Pletz himself going for 49 to total 130 on the ground for the Grizzlies. So a very strong start in week 1 for Golden Grizzlies Club football. Going into their next game against Miami of Ohio. Not as many fireworks for this one, as the final score was 9-7, but still in the Grizzlies' favor. In a much more defensive game, the Oakland offense was able to generate 105 yards in the air and 163 on the ground. As for Miami of Ohio, there were, I guess we could talk about a little bit of an error in the scorekeeping here. Ethan Watson of Miami of Ohio completed 250% of his passes, according to the stat keeping here, completing 20 of his 8 attempts. And if I were a betting man, I would say that those numbers should be reversed. But I thought it was something funny to bring up. So Oakland gets another win on the season, currently 2-0, 9-7 against Miami of Ohio. Moving on to their third game of the season was against the University of Milwaukee, a team familiar in the Horizon League for those that follow the Division I sports, but they also have a club football team as well. This game was something similar to one against Chicago, where it was a lot of Oakland and not a lot of Milwaukee. Final score was 31-8. Oakland offense had 160 yards in the air. Evan Pletz also had a completion percentage above 100, completing 23 of 9 attempted passes. Once again, I would wager that the stats are flipped, unless he is just that good. So 160 in the air with a touchdown and an interception. And on the ground, 169 recorded. And it was a split effort amongst the Grizzlies in such an effort. So 31-8 was the score against Milwaukee. Moving on now to the big homecoming game that was played at Oakland University. It was against Michigan State, a team that you all, I'm sure, know for the Big Ten Division I football team, but they also have a club football team as well. And they gave the Grizzlies a thriller on homecoming week, giving them their first loss recorded 18-13. A very, very close game, and one that, through some hearsay, I heard there was a little bit of controversy too. So we'll be asking our star athletes at 6:30 when they come into the studio for their fantastic interview. So in this game, Jack Donovan was the quarterback for the Spartans, recording 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. On the ground, the Spartans recorded 96 yards, along with a touchdown on the ground. And their defense did quite well for themselves, totaling 9 sacks in that game. And then we turn it over to the stats for the Grizzlies. On the offense, 130 yards in the air, and then only 69 on the ground. As for the defensive stats, of course, they always get after the quarterback. 7.5 sacks recorded in this game. But unfortunately, it was just not enough to get over the Spartans on homecoming week. Its final score, 18-13. Moving on to another school that you know for their Big Ten Division I football team. This time, Ohio State. This one was, we'll put it lightly, it was not the greatest game for the Golden Grizzlies. Final score was 54-10. The Buckeyes. They were able to amass 292 yards in the air with 4 touchdowns, as well as 138 yards and another 4 touchdowns on the ground. So a bit of a setback for the Grizzlies coming into week 6. Final score 54-10, Ohio State. And then they got their revenge against another Horizon League team with a club football team, this being the Wright State Raiders. Playing this one also at Oakland University, 36-3 was the final score against the Raiders. 120 yards in the air, 200 on the ground for the Golden Grizzlies. And I always look for the sack total, 5.5 for the Grizzlies. You look at the Wright State stats, not much to show for. 73 allowed in the air, although 202 yards on the ground. Not leading to many points, as you can see, only amassing a field goal against the Grizzlies. So another great win for the Grizzlies, 36-3. To bring us to the final game of the regular season was against Toledo. This one being another unfortunate performance for the Grizzlies. 46-9 was the final score. The Rockets got 297 yards in the air, 153 on the ground, allowing them to get that 46 points. So I know it was a bit of a rough go-through of the season, but not to worry. If you want it in more detail, then who better to ask than the captains and the president of the team themselves? Pretty soon here on the GioMoShow, after a short break, we're going to be talking to Evan Pletz and Devin Banks here on the GioMoShow for Club Football. We'll be right back here on 88.3 FM WXOU.